All right, welcome everyone. I think we're going to go ahead and get started here and jump into our 2024-25 scoring and reporting webinar um, for the CASP and LPAC. So thank you for joining us today. We are going to be covering a lot of topics today related to scoring and reporting. So buckle up. My name is Tyler Shakwa. I'm on the training and outreach team here at ETS, and I'll be facilitating today's webinar along with my co-presenters, Eric Wenrick and Moses Jorge, who are going to jump in a little bit in a little bit here, and I'll let them introduce themselves when they jump in. And we also have several other folks from ETS or from the California Department of Education or CDE who are on as panelists and might be answering some questions that you send in on our Padlet page. I'm going to get to the Padlet in just a sec because we're using that today to answer some of our questions behind the scenes. So we're going to have a bit.ly page up on the next slide here. So you can use a bit.ly link that you can use, but I'm also going to put it in the chat for everybody. And we'll repost that, and that has the direct link to our Padlet page. So that's what we'll be using to gather questions, and they'll either get answered live if we can, or they'll get answered in the background by folks as well. You can also get the materials from that Padlet page. There are links in the very first column to the slides and to the resource guide today. And you can also, there's a few little FAQs and things like that, but you can add your questions to the appropriate column as we get through the different sections of our agenda. So we'll go through the topics that we're covering today. Obviously, we're starting out with a welcome, and then we'll just have a brief overview about CASP and the LPAC. Then we're going to kind of go into important information and updates, stuff that is relatively new this year, or just important information for folks to know. Then we'll talk about accessing results and reports. We'll go talk a little bit about scoring, and then communicating results before we answer some questions and close out at the end. All right. And we're going to go through some learning goals and success criteria, but I will again just mention that all of the links that we mention throughout the session are going to be in our resource guide. So that's a Word document that you can download that has a bunch of the resources and links that we're talking about. And then obviously the slides, if those are helpful for you to have as well, you can also get that. But here's a little bit about what we're going to be trying to focus on today. So hopefully by the end of the session, participants will be able to access and understand CASP and LPAC scoring, results, and reporting information. Hopefully you'll be able to determine next steps and additional resources that can help effectively communicate results to educational partners and identify resources available to learn how to use the data. So if you want to go into an even deeper dive though into this stuff, we do offer several other data and results trainings. So here's a little rundown of what we do have available. So some of the SIRS trainings in particular happened over the past year. We're going to have more in the fall, but there are recordings available for a bunch of these SIRS trainings. So if you need that info right now, you can go to our training page, which I will put in the chat for us as well. I'm going to repost the Padlet link again also for folks that have just joined us. But you can find recordings of those SIRS trainings either on that training page, or you can go to the SIRS resources page as well on our website. But there's the introduction to SIRS training, there's the Beyond the Basics training, and then the Accessing Summative Assessment Results in SIRS. And all of those are really great resources. There also tends to be for at least for the intro and the Beyond the Basics sessions, there's an educator focused one and also an administrator or coordinator focused session. We also have the LPAC results are in training, which is an on-demand training that you can get to in Moodle. And so if you're really trying to dive into LPAC results specifically, that is a really great option. There's a ton of info that we keep adding to every year. Um, so that is definitely a good option if you want to go even deeper. And then if you want to go deeper with CASP data beyond today's session, I recommend that you register for the Data Leadership Training Series, which is going to kick off next week. There are 4 sessions to that Data Leadership Training Series. And that will be a really great way for folks to have an even deeper dive on how to kind of build some data structure into your planning for future years and all of that. Will have the 2025-26 new coordinator training webinars that often cover data and results that SCOE hosts, and also our Lexile and Quantile training series, which I believe is happening in October in the fall, if you want to learn a little bit more about the Lexile and Quantile measures. Lots of stuff to go to if you want to dive even deeper after today. All right, so for our first section, we're going to talk a little bit about the CASP and LPAC. And for that, I am going to hand it over to Eric Wenrick. And Eric, before you start, if you want to just introduce yourself real quick, that would be great. Take it away.
Absolutely. I've been doing this particular series a little bit. My name is Eric Winterick. I am an active LEA coordinator, just like a lot of you. I don't think Tyler mentioned at this particular presentation. A lot of what we're going to say is specific to LEA coordinators. So if you hold some other role in the system, know that some of the reports and some of the things we're going to talk about today may not pertain exactly to you. But yeah, this is a place where I come and have been doing this for a while. I'm now finishing up my 13th season of doing state testing, and I've been around doing research evaluation and assessment in another school district for about 8.5 years prior to that. So we're going to start off talking about the CASP assessments and what fits under that umbrella. We've got the Smarter Balance for English Language Arts, or ELA. We've got mathematics under there. Keep in mind that the focus of the summative assessment data in this training, but there's also valuable interim assessment data as well. Eventually it gets purged over the summer. You might want to download it if you're going away for the summer or before that data goes away. We're also going to be talking a little bit about the California Science Test, or the CAST, summative assessments and interim assessments available to go with science as well. The California Alternate Assessments, or the CAAs, for ELA, math, science, and the California Spanish Assessment, or CSA. For the LPAC, we'll be discussing both the summative LPAC and the summative alternate LPAC, a little bit about interim assessments. So all of those are what we're talking about today. Hopefully you're already well acquainted with most of those. We know some of you may have only one of those 2 roles, and so we'll be also going through those. All right. So as we head into the end of the test administration year, we recognize some of you have been doing this work like I have for a while. Some of you might be brand new. It's an interesting time to enter. We're always in part of a cycle where we're preparing for the next thing, trying to wrap up the previous thing, somewhere in between those, always working on it. So if you need additional training or resources, Tyler's already given you a bunch and a rundown about that, or maybe just a refresher about CASP and LPAC. Of course, there are asynchronous new coordinator webinars and some upcoming live ones that Tyler's already gone over. We have CASP 101, LPAC 101. These are in videos that you can find under the training section. We have recordings from 24, 25 pretest virtual training series. And this year, the series focused primarily on changes to assessments in 2 sessions, what's new with CAS and what's new with the LPAC. So if you need more of my voice telling you stuff, I think I'm in both of those as well. All right. We are just now getting in a lot of our results. This is, for somebody like me who's been doing this a while, it's a very interesting time period. I'm kind of trying to juggle what I tell people about this time period. It's like our results aren't all there yet. Don't get too worried or don't get too excited. Trying to get superintendents, assistant superintendents, principals, all kind of they're able to see the results in ways that we have not been had in too many years in the past. It's just been the last few years that they've been able to see them along with us as they're starting to roll out. So the results for CASP, remember, communicate students' progress in achieving Common Core state standards. They're used to calculate ELA and mathematics academic indicators on the California School Dashboard, and they inform decisions that teachers and administrators make about improving their educational program. Remember that CASP results are only one measure of a student's achievement level. They should be used in conjunction with other measures to better and fully understand their progress. So keep those in mind. There are some other local uses as well, so you may want to consider how you're using it. Some other purposes, right? For the LPAC. LPAC results are used as how the English learner progress, how our EL students are progressing toward English language proficiency. LPAC results are used to calculate the English Learner Progress Indicator, or the ELPI for short, on the California School Dashboard. The results are also used for program monitoring and evaluation at the local level. And additionally, the summative LPAC, summative alternate LPACs are used to meet criteria number 1 of the 4 criteria in the process of reclassifying students to fluent English proficient and exiting EL programs and services. A reminder that the CDE recently issued a clarification. Summative LPAC score of 4 or an alternate LPAC score of 3 is required for reclassification to meet criteria number 1. So important parts of what we're doing. And I just mentioned that our district, having received about 94% of our results, we've been in the process of turning what I call quick flips this time of year, turning them over pretty quickly. We're getting in those 4s, we're zeroing in on those, and we're reclassifying students. Keep in mind with your 12th graders, they need to be reclassified in CalPADS before they leave CalPADS, because they will be graduating in a lot of cases. And so unless they're in the SPED program, and they'll be continuing on. So it's really important to look at that. We also really try to prioritize kids that are going from at the secondary level, because it gives them an elective, or from 6th graders that are going into middle school. So keep those in mind. All right, so there are some guides to help with this. The scoring and reporting guide is now available for 24-25. Provides information about both CASP and LPAC for those needing to use the results of the assessment, look things up in them. Includes assessment overviews, information about scoring, achievement levels, task types within each LPAC domain, reports, including different types of reports, purposes, how to interpret and use results, lots of information there. So the scoring and reporting guide features a page that includes links to all the resources that you'll need to access, understand, and make use of the assessment information. The LPAC information guide helps users understand the differences between the initial LPAC, summative LPAC, initial alternative LPAC, summative alternate LPAC. The guide also helps understand the initial identification of potential EL students, annual assessments, reclassification processes, and it provides information about assessing EL students with disabilities. So, where are we now? We've come to the end of testing. And I kind of feel like, Tyler, we should have had a whole slide about this. We're at the end of testing. We've made it. If this is your first season, congratulations. This is a big deal. You've helped a lot of students get through this. You've probably resolved, Moses is there applauding, I see. You've gotten through it, right? So now you know how the end is going to look if you happen to have started in the middle, or you've made it through a complete year, and now you can start gearing up for next year, thinking about this initial LPAC. So we're at that magical place where we're starting to see the results of all your hard work to get everybody assessed and keep track of it, make sure everybody gets there, and all their hard work to learn and to demonstrate their learning. So I just wanted to celebrate that a little bit more, because our slide here is really focused on looking ahead. So of course, right? What's the reward for hard work? It's more hard work. So here we go. So here's what's coming. Looking ahead at what's next, we encourage you to use your coordinator checklist to ensure you've completed the necessary activities for 24-25. Wrap that up, finish it. Links to the coordinator checklist are in your resource guide. At This time, you might be able to distribute student score reports or SSRs either through the parent or student portal, which is what my district does, or by downloading them and disseminating printed or electronic versions through a secure local method, which we also do for those we can't reach through the portal. And make sure staff in your LEA have the appropriate access to be able to see the scores or score reports as needed. Today, we're going to focus on how to access scores and reports in TOMS and in SIRS. For more information on how to use CASP assessment results, we recommend, as Tyler already pointed out, that you attend the Data Leadership Training Series. I've signed up for those. Tyler, those will be recorded too for people that might have a vacation plan somewhere in there so they can loop back, right?
They will. Yes, those will be recorded and posted.
Thank you. I'll be among those people catching up on the last session or two there by video. Training will go more into depth about CASP data. It will start Tuesday, June 17th. It's a great follow-up training if you're looking for more deeper information. A link to the registration site also included in your resource guide. For information on how to use LPAC assessment results, access the LPAC results are in Now What Asynchronous Course in Moodle. A link is also in your resource guide. All righty. So now we're moving on to some important information and updates, and I believe, Moses, this is you.
Thank you, Eric. And if I can ask, please, can we go back to the last slide that Eric shared with us? Thank you there. Let's take a second. Let's breathe. Boy, let's breathe, because before we get into the next section, which is going to be a heavy section with some very valuable information, I want to do two things. I want to make sure that you pat yourself on the back. As I said, and as Eric said right now, yeah, please, every single one of you, all 300 of you that are here, boy, does this month have a lot to say about your incredible dedication. Most importantly, your incredible dedication to our students. Because please don't ever forget that this is all about one thing, about our work that we do on behalf of our students. And so I want to applaud you. You need to applaud yourself. The incredible work that you have done up to now, every single one of you. We thank you from the bottom of our hearts for what you do every year for your students. And we urge you, please relax, refresh, rejuvenate, and come back with excitement for the next year. With that said, my name is Moses. I have an incredible honor and an incredibly interesting situation. Just about 3 months ago, I sat where Eric was sitting. For 14 years, doing testing at the LEA, having the honor of having been leading this work for Los Angeles Unified. And now 3 months ago, getting an even bigger honor to come and now be part of this amazing team at ETS and help. And we will be meeting each other in the near future. We will be working together on an ongoing basis as this new year comes up. But more importantly, I have the honor of serving you now as being part of this amazing team with ETS in the work that you're doing, again, on behalf of our students throughout the entire state of California. So with that said, please, if you have not yet done so, please look in the chat. And I think they all have access to the chat box, right, Tyler? They can all access it.
Yeah, they
Please,
should be
if
able
you
to
haven't
see
done-
it, but not post in it. Yeah.
Yeah. If you have not yet done so, please go to the chat, take a look at the link that Tyler has posted on there for the Padlet. It's an incredible resource that will serve you much more than just being able to ask a question. But take a look. Where is this young lady that I want to call out? Before we even got started, Courtney, thank you so much. She had posted like 5 incredible, important, great questions that I assure you, Courtney, it's not just you. Every single one of us used to come with that set of questions on our minds. They are the hottest, most important questions that I know over years. We always used to come with as LEA coordinators. And Courtney, from before it even started this presentation, I posted some great questions. Take advantage of the Padlet, not only to post your questions, but to see what your colleagues are also asking. And one last hurrah that I want to share with you. Folks, I don't know if you've noticed or if you know, you have the highlight of staff here from not only ETS and the LEAs like Eric, but we have our partners from the CDE here that are an incredible support to us all throughout the year. Those Padlet questions that you have there, you can't imagine the value of you being here today to be able to have that kind of knowledge at your disposal, helping you to get a grasp on the questions that are most burning in your minds. So please, if you have it, take a look at the Padlet, have it open, have it ready, use it not only for your questions, but to see what your colleagues are also asking, because I'm sure they're also important to you. So now that I've
And
taken up so much of that time, go ahead, Tyler.
that's okay, Moses. It's a really good point, and I just wanted to mention that the Padlet will stay up indefinitely, pretty much. So you can reference it after we leave as well.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Tyler. So now, if we can now jump into my section, and please bear with us. This section has a rich amount. It's heavy. It's going, I will take it at a pace and give you time to process some of it. If something comes to mind of a follow-up, again, the Padlet, drop it there, and it'll be of great help to us to be able to help you process this information. So now let's get into some of the weeds and the important information and updates about the scores that are coming out. Where to find the results? To give a brief overview, the CASP and LPAC results can be found in several places. From TOMS, LEA coordinators and site coordinators can download SSRs for individual students or in bulk. Also available is the SSR availability report. And right around now, people like Eric and like you are working with those. And those reports contain a list of students whose SSRs have been made available. LEA coordinators, you can download student score data files in TOMS. And those contain individual assessment records for all students tested or enrolled in the LEA. So that's TOMS. In SIRS, users can access individual student or aggregate group results. And finally, public statewide LEA level and school level results can be found on the Test Results for California's Assessments website. Okay, we'll discuss these systems individually a little bit later, especially for you first-year coordinators. These are resources that might be totally new to you. You'll start to get a handle on them. For now, let's go over a general timeline of when you can expect to receive scores and reports. Okay. All that I'm going to say, please focus in on the slide that you have. It's a really nice slide that helps you to organize all of the following information. Scores for the Smarter Balance summative assessments and the CAST are available after enough assessments have been taken statewide in order for ETS to perform quality control procedures. Now, LEAs fine-tune their testing schedules each year. We know that. And as a result, the date when scores are predicted to come out can be different from year to year. The schedule is always tentative until scores are released. But in general, the volume needed to check quality is usually reached by the end of May. Yes, the screen is black. I want to make sure that it's not me. It's
Yes.
not my.
Sorry about that. I'm trying
Oh, no.
to fix it. I'm not sure why it went black.
Yeah,
so
no. Let's take
Weird.
bear with me.
No worries. Might just need to unshare and reshare.
This has nothing to do with the embargoed period, right?
Not getting censored over here.
Yeah, did I say something that yeah,
We shut it down.
I shut us down?
I will just take this moment to mention there are a lot of folks jumping into the Padlet, and a lot of the questions already answered by, like Moses said, by folks here at ETS, but at CDE. So yeah, definitely whenever we take a break, get over there and, see what questions are being answered. And we'll try to read out the important ones.
And they had the PowerPoint available to them, right, Tyler?
Yes, the PowerPoint is available for download in the Padlet as well as that resource guide. There's a direct link to the data leadership training series in that first column as well, and a couple of frequently asked questions in that first column also.
Do you want me to keep going as they follow along on their PowerPoint, or?
I'm not sure. Dina, is it not letting you share again, or? I might be able to take over here also. Let's see.
Yeah, I think it's the second screen for some reason went black, so that's what I'm trying to
Technology.
fix here. Mm-hmm.
Let me get set up on my end too. I might be able to take it over.
Wow, I'm so glad to see that you guys took me serious on the Padlet. It has grown incrementally.
Yeah, lots of questions flying in.
In just the last couple of minutes. That's great.
Let's see here.
Busy Elephant, I love your question. Great question.
Almost there. All right, are we seeing that?
There you go.
Yes.
Now we
Thank
got
you.
it. Slide
No
15.
problem. There we go.
There we go. Excellent. So to recap, the schedule of the results being released. It's always tentative until scores are released. But in general, and this is an important thing, in general, the volume needed to check for quality assurances for ETS is usually reached around the end of May. That's why where we are now. Let's go forward. As of last year, the CAST results are included on the same SSR as the Smarter Balance summative assessments for ELA and mathematics. And all three of the CAAs, ELA, math, and science, are combined into one SSR. This means that SSRs will be available, and we've been getting so many inquiries about this recently. SSRs will be available once scores for all three assessments are available. Take a second, think that through. If you've been wondering, where are my SSRs? The kid took math and ELA, but if he's a fifth grader. Okay, let's go for example. If a fifth grade student completed their Smarter Balance summative assessments, but took the CAST a week after, the SSR will not be generated until all three tests are scored and ready for reporting. That might just have answered a lot of your recent concerns. This means that if any of the three tests was started but not submitted, the system will force complete the test at the end of the testing window. And the student's SSR will not be generated until late summer. So we'll dive into more details on this in just a few minutes. Now, the dates for CASP result release are as follows. For the Smarter Balance summative assessments for ELA and math and the CAST, results in SIRS and student score data files were released in TOMS on May 15, and the SSRs were released in TOMS on May 16th. And after the first release of results, the ongoing release of SSRs will occur daily. Now, for the CAAs, for ELA, math, and science, results in SIRS, student score data files in TOMS, and the SSRs in TOMS, those are estimated to be available later in September, the early part of September. Now, due to the blueprint change that was made to the CSA this year, which we're going to go over in more depth in just a little while, but due to that change, the CSA results in the student score data file and the SSRs in TOMS, those are estimated to be available in early December. CSA results in SIRS, those are estimated to be available in spring of 2026. Okay. We expect that all aggregate CASP results, with the exception of the CSA, will be publicly released to that website called the Test Results for California's Assessment website sometime in mid-October. Okay, take a second, think that through. Remember the value of this slide for your sanity. Okay, moving along. The 2024-25 LPAC results. This year, the summative LPAC and the summative alternate LPAC results were released together. For the summative LPAC and the summative alternate LPAC for kinder through grade 12, results in SIRS and student score data files were released in TOMS on May 8th, and SSRs were released in TOMS on May 9th. Now, ETS, we must receive all completed kinder through grade 2 writing answer books to be scored, and LEAs must ship their materials. This is timely, just in case, and we've been bugging you tremendously this week about this. All K2 writing answer books to be scored, LEAs must ship the materials to ETS on or before June 13th, 2025, in order to access SSRs by August of 2025. So please, if you haven't, that's this Friday, by the way. Keep that date in mind. Now, for the initial LPAC and initial alternate LPAC, student score data files and SSRs are available year-round in TOMS. And we expect that all aggregate LPAC results will be publicly released to the Test Results for California's Assessment website in mid-October. Again, I know many of you have to report on this. There's that slide that helps you so much to be able to report to your constituents on these dates. Now, data preview. Prior to the release of data to the public on the Test Results for California Assessments website, LEAs, you will have early access to the data preview. The purpose of this preview is to allow LEAs early access to their aggregate results and to allow them the opportunity to confirm that all student enrollment and tested counts are correct. Okay. Some important information about demographic fields that we have worked with you in the past and have made some changes to it. As in previous years, you know that some demographic fields are locked upon test administration events. This year, additional demographic fields were updated to lock upon a student's first testing event for any summative assessment. And then there was another smaller subset of demographic fields now that lock upon a student's first testing event for summative LPAC assessments. Now, a full list of the changes was sent out in an email to the field in January of this year, 2025. And a link to that archived email is in your resource guide. And by the way, just as valuable as the Padlet, make sure you have the resource guide that goes along with this entire presentation today. And we'll briefly review that list in the next slide. So these changes are meant to improve data accuracy by locking key demographics at the start of testing and preventing post-test changes and ensuring consistent data. Now, take a look at the list. Here's the list of the fields that are locked when a student began any summative assessment or domain, and the additional fields that are locked when a student began the summative LPAC or the summative alternate LPAC. Okay, as you're looking at it, I will just quickly glance through it. I was supposed to read every single one of them to you, but that was like, do I need to read each of them to you, or do I give you a second to breathe? Okay, on the left, you have the fields that locked when a student began any summative assessment or domain. And then on the right, you have the smaller set of demographic fields that locked when a student began summative LPAC or summative alternate LPAC. Tyler, is that okay? Do I have permission to not read every single one of them? Thank you. Okay. So now, since the adoption of the Smarter Balance Adjusted Blueprints, the CDE has worked with ETS and Smarter Balance Assessment Consortium to find a way to reduce testing times as well as report more detailed results. Y'all remember the pandemic? Y'all remember when this happened? And we continue to work with our partners to be able to do that. As of 2023-24 school year, composite claim results are reported for the Smarter Balanced assessments for ELA and mathematics in SIRS and on the SSRs for individual students. Aggregate composite claims are reported on the test results for California Assessment's website for groups of 11 or more. Okay, we'll cover these composite claims in more detail shortly here. Another wonderful slide for you to have handy as you're trying to share this information. So now, claims and targets. Before we dive further into detail about the various measures being reported, let's take a moment to review some key terms that are used in Smarter Balance assessment, design, and reporting. So for example, the Smarter Balance assessments are aligned with the Common Core State Standards in ELA and mathematics. However, the state standards are primarily phrased in a manner to guide instruction. The claims and targets within the assessment blueprints, they take the content and language of the state standards and ensure that they are phrased in a way that guides assessment. Now, using evidence-centered design, these claims and targets allow us to make clear statements about what a student knows and can do in relation to the academic standards. So, claims are broad categories or statements that summarize the knowledge and skills students are expected to demonstrate on the assessments related to a particular aspect of the academic standards. Each content area measures 4 domains. In mathematics, for example, concepts and procedures, problem solving, communicating reasoning, and modeling data analysis. In ELA, the 4 claims are reading, writing, speaking and listening, and research and inquiry. Those are the claims. Now, targets, they describe at a more granular level the expectations of the knowledge, skills, or abilities assessed by the items and tasks within each claim. So a target can be aligned with one or more standards. As an example, the ELA content area has a reading claim. And within this claim, there is a grade 5 specific target that's called central ideas, defined by the ability to identify or determine a theme or central idea from details in the text or summarize the text. This assessment target is aligned with the grade 5 Common Core ELA standards titled RL1 and RL2. So for more detail on the topic of claims and targets, the Smarter Balance Content Explorer is a great tool that allows you and your teachers to explore the content area specific claims and grade specific targets for these assessments. And again, take a look at your resource guide. This is linked right there. Your Smarter Content Explorer is linked in your resource guide. So, moving on with this idea of the claims and targets. As we mentioned, as of last year, composite claim results for Smarter Balanced ELA and mathematics assessments are available in SIRS and on SSRs. Now, new this year, composite claim results are also available on the SIRS individual student report, or that ISR that you have available in SIRS. For ELA, the claims reading and speaking listening have been combined to report the composite claim reading and listening. Also, the writing and research claims, they have been combined. Now, for mathematics, the concepts and procedures claims will be reported as is. However, the problem solving, communicating reasoning, and modeling and data analysis claims, those have been combined into the composite claim called mathematical practices. These composite results are calculated from all items in the composite. As mentioned, these composite claim results are available not only in SIRS, but also on the SSRs for parents and guardians to have access to these results. So take a second. Again, please, the slides can be so valuable for your sanity, and then as you go forward, communicating this to your stakeholders. Now, aggregate claim results, composite claim results will also be available on the website, Test Results for California Assessments, for groups of 11 or more. And individual claim results will continue to be available on the Test Results for California Assessments website for groups of 30 or more. And target reports. Target reports are available in SIRS, but for groups of 30 students or more, for targets with more than 10 items in the pool. Now, groups without this criteria, they will show, as you see here on this slide, as insufficient data. Target reports can provide insight into student performance as a group in particular target areas. Now, through the target reports, you can view student performance on a specific target relative to that group of students' performance on the test as a whole, or relative to the standard met threshold. Now, target reports can be found within custom aggregate reports as soon again as enough results are in SIRS. Target results in SIRS are also available to teachers for their assigned group with 30 or more students, and the target results can be accessed through the results drop-down menu above the list of individual student results. So if you would like to get more information about target reports in SIRS, you can review the Assessment Target Reports Frequently Asked Questions document, or you can attend one of the upcoming trainings that Tyler announced earlier in one of our slides at the beginning that we're going to have for SIRS Sandbox or SIRS specific trainings. Now, a little more on the target and claim reports. So to summarize, and what a wonderful slide for summarizing this. This slide provides a little table that outlines the availability status, location, and estimated release, and the conditions of claim and targets results. So, composite claims results for individual students are available on SSRs, in SIRS, and on ISRs. On the test results for California's assessment website, or TRCA, composite claim results are reported, don't forget, for groups of 11 or more. And individual claim results are reported for groups of 30 or more. And target scores, they are available in SIRS for groups of 30 or more with 10 or more items in the pool. So another wonderful slide to not only help you organize your information, but of great importance for you to be able to use to share as a tool with your constituents. So now, one more piece of information around reporting, that as of 2023-24, the writing extended response, or what we call the WER, those scores are also available on the SSRs. This year, we have updated our resources, including the Understanding the Smarter Balance Writing Extended Response question PDF. Links to these resources are included again in your resource guide. Now, additionally, some students were randomly administered an embedded field test item this year. And if a student participated in the embedded field test, please note they will not receive a score for the WER portion of their assessment. Field test questions are to test the question to ensure the validity, reliability, and fairness of new test questions before they are used to contribute to student scores. That is the reason why those students will not receive a score for the WER portion.
Yeah, Moses, I wanted to
Okay.
jump in there and emphasize that because we've gotten that question a lot, I think, this year about the no
Yes.
WER scores, and this isn't a new thing, but I think the reason that it's coming up more is because the SSR redesign has that in there when it didn't always used to have the WER score, I think. So it's just a lot more obvious to some folks that had never seen that before. So just wanted to emphasize that since we've gotten a lot of questions on that.
And this is around the time that those questions are coming up. And that is one that we have been getting quite a bit this year. And those are some of the reasons why. Now, you may have noticed in an earlier slide that the CAAs for ELA, mathematics, and science results will be available in September. Now, please note that additional analysis after the test window closes is required for the CAA for science. It's called post-equating, and it is performed after the test has been administered, and it involves analyzing student performance and characteristics of the test items on each of the forms. This only ensures the scores of students on each form are on a common scale and are comparable from year to year. So that's why the difference in the release dates. As of last year, cohort reporting is now available for the high school CAA for science. Like CAST cohort reporting, the test results for California's assessment website will show how the entire class of eligible grade 12 students performed on the high school CAA for science, regardless of whether they tested in grade 10, 11, or 12. Now, these aggregate results will be available in the fall on the test results for California's assessment website and will be labeled HS Class of 2025 for student groups of 11 or more. This will not include students who are repeating grade 12, though. Please keep that in mind. Now, student level science cohort results are included in the CASP student score data file. An indicator has been added to identify whether the student is a current year tester or if they are a prior year tester. Changes to the CSA blueprint. Remember, we mentioned that earlier. Here goes now some details about it. In response to feedback from the CSA field test in 23-24, a subsequent focus group, the California State Board of Education, or SBE, they approved revisions to the test blueprint and addendum to the high-level test design for the CSA in September of 2024. So the revised blueprint from this test design includes the addition of the speaking domain for high school grade band only as intended to meet, in part, the requirements for the state seal of biliteracy. Now, the speaking domain was removed from the operational assessments for grades 3 through 8. and full write essays were also added to all grade levels in the expansion of the CSA. Now, additionally, there were no local scoring by the LEA for the CSA, and therefore no required scoring training for LEAs. And to reduce the burden on LEAs and test administrators, all speaking and writing constructed response, or CRs, those items will be scored by the testing vendor, or ETS. And now you can refer to the September 2024 board item document in your resource guide for any additional information on the revisions that were approved by the State Board of Education for the CSA. And now, results for the CSA. As usual, overall scale scores will be available for the CSA. Starting this year, achievement levels for overall scale scores and performance levels for all domains will be available for the CSA in the student score data file, on the SSRs, and in SIRS. And for the high school grade band, remember, composite scores and achievement levels will be available. The CSA composites are oral, which is comprised from the speaking and listening domains, written, which is comprised from the reading and writing domains. Okay. So stepping away now from these scores.
Before we leave that CSA
Yeah.
slide, Moses, I just wanted to mention, I believe that some of this for the CSA is dependent on state board approval of the new SSRs that I believe is happening in September. So this could change slightly, but this is what's expected. So I wanted to make sure I mentioned that, because we mentioned earlier that the results for CSA for this year aren't expected until December tentatively, and SIRS even after that, I think in spring of 2026, and that's because we're pending some of those decisions. So just wanted to mention that before we move on.
No, thank you for that clarification. So let's wrap up this section and talk about a few incredibly valuable resources. And we're delighted to announce that the Lexile and Quantile Hub from Metametrics was updated in October of 2024 and redesigned for improved accessibility and more intuitive navigation. Now, for those that may not be familiar with the Lexile and Quantile Hub, the CDE has partnered with Metametrics to offer statewide, no-cost access to Lexile and Quantile tools and resources for all families and educators in California's LEAs, and these tools can be accessed from the Lexile and Quantile Hub. Now, the hub was updated to be optimized across various types of devices, including phones, tablets, and laptops. There is also a new resource center that brings together instructional materials such as decodable passages, vocabulary lists, and a variety of mathematics supports. In addition to this, there are user guides that are available for each tool that is now available in this hub. The Lexile and Quantile Hub, overall, the hub provides useful instructional tools for educators to differentiate instruction based on student Lexile and Quantile scores. These scores are included directly on a student's SSR if they received a score for the Smarter Balanced ELA assessments or the Smarter Balanced mathematics assessments. Now, California public school educators, they all have a premium subscription to the Lexile and Quantile dashboard in the hub. And you can access the hub through Tom's, select the links button, and then you'll see the select the Lexile and Quantile hub link. So for more information on the Lexile framework for reading and Quantile framework for mathematics, you can watch recordings of the Lexile and Quantile virtual trainings that were facilitated by Metametrics at the beginning of this test administration year. And the URL for the upcoming and on-demand trainings webpage where these past trainings can be found is linked on your resource guide. Now, are we going to launch a poll, Tyler?
I think we'll skip it for time for now. Yeah.
So,
Thanks, Moses.
SSR updates. A couple of changes will be made to SSRs this year. Previously, the combined Smarter Balance for ELA and Mathematics and CAST SSR was a 5-page document. And this year, it will increase to 6 pages long. Based on your feedback, a 6th page, blank page, has been added to improve the process for LEAs who print SSRs in bulk, double-sided, as the new blank 6th page will now push the next student's SSR to print on the front side of the next page. And additionally, the CSA SSR, it will be 2 pages long and will be updated to include new information based on the expansion. The SSR will include the performance levels for all 4 domains, and for high school only, it will also include composite scores and achievement levels. And video SSRs. 2 video SSRs are available for 2025-26. One, the CASP Smarter Balanced for ELA and Mathematics, which is a single video that combines both ELA and mathematics. And then there is a summative LPAC video. And each of these videos is $1.50 per student. And this cost includes both English and non-English videos for students whose primary language is something other than English. Okay, these videos can be personalized with the student's name, school name, and the school logo. These videos can help explain scores more clearly than conventional SSRs and provide opportunities for interaction and increasing engagement. So if you're interested in learning more about the video SSRs, again, please refer to your resource guide. There's a link to the Video Student Score Reports webpage. It has been included in your resource guide. And lastly, I mentioned that there were other languages. Take a quick look. As it relates to your student population, video SSRs are now available in these languages that you see here. Fully translated into all of these languages if you so decide to go in this direction. And we don't have a rest or processing slide in here, but I will add one. Please take a second.
Yeah.
Before we hand it back to Eric. I know
Yeah, that was a long section. We got to take a deep breath.
A long section. Take a couple of deep breaths. This is a wonderful opportunity. If you didn't, while we were walking through this, your Padlet, boy, it's rich in questions and answers. Take a
Yeah,
minute, see if something else resonates that you would want to ask as a follow-up. Thank you, Eric.
yeah, yeah. And I mean, before we move on to that section, is there anything, any questions, Eric? I've seen that you've been busy in there answering a bunch of questions in the Padlet, so thank you for that. Anything that you want to share, common questions or important questions that we want to say out loud before we move on?
I think a lot of the questions that I've been responding to are actually questions that are already in the slide deck and going to be covered in what's coming up. So
That's true,
I
yeah.
really appreciate everybody's anticipation and willingness to jump in there and ask those questions. Hopefully this next section talking about accessing results and reports and what to access for what purpose will help clear up some of that confusion for you. And we'll go forward, I think, with that, because I was going to throw in a couple of comments from some of the things I responded to there in the Padlet.
Sounds good.
So let's go ahead and move right into it. So we're going to talk about the one-stop shop. And I frankly, as somebody who's been around a long time, you kind of get set in your ways and you forget, hey, there's new stuff out there. So I've just really gotten into using this more this year. There are definitely some limitations, but man, is it quick and easy. The one stop at a glance, a lot of my test coordinators are in here. For those that are using it and maybe still in an active testing session, or just to keep in mind for the future, this is on a kind of 1-day delay. So it doesn't give stuff the same as the completion status reports do out of the TIDES system. So keep that in mind. But this is your one stop for adding users, placing material orders. You're going to be able to find that My Toms at a Glance dashboard. You can go to download SSRs, student score data files, huge right now, and any related reports. So we're going to discuss My Toms at a Glance. That's the one I told you I've just been really getting used to using this last couple of years and really kind of getting into it more and more. It's accessible from your home page. Your site coordinators have their own version that's accessible for their page. So it allows CASP users to access a comprehensive summary at the right level for the LEA or for the school. General information about it, a number of students who completed each assessment, demographics, enrolled students, information about testing windows, test status, and things like that. The big purpose of this is really just to get, just like when you're driving a car, right? The big purpose of this is while you're in the test window and things are sort of going. This just gives you a quick dashboard. So be careful about using it for things like accountability or for apportionment or any other use. This is really just your dashboard of how are we doing? Are all the gauges showing me the right things? Or, oh, wait a minute, hold on. Nobody has started a CAA for science yet. How come? Right? So that'll give you kind of your warning light and things like that. So use it during the window to keep track of what's going on. LEAs have the optionally view the status of ELA and math separately. You can select from your test administration year and actually change that and see what it's going to look like as everything gets wrapped up and completed if you want. So lots of different ways that you can use that. The My Toms at a Glance includes the same features for LPAC as it does for CASP. Users will find the test status, the initial LPAC, summative LPAC, as well as the initial alternate LPAC, summative alternate LPAC. Keep in mind that here's the important statuses, right? Started, that's somebody who has started a test, at least in one domain. Complete, on this indicates students who have completed all 4 domains. For the summative LPAC A2 writing, complete is when the LEA ships and ETS scans the answer book. So they do get eventually marked completed, right? But they have to go all the way to the scoring center and get out of a box and scored. And so I've explained that to some of my site coordinators. It does take a little bit of time. That's why we try to get our booklets in early in our district and try to get those going. My assistant just shipped, I'm going to celebrate. My assistant just shipped the last box yesterday. So all ours are done. Everybody is in, we verified, checked and dotted our I's, crossed our T's. Everything is in. Test completion, keeps in mind, also includes the number of students not tested since the enrollment date for the initial LPAC and the initial alternate LPAC. As a reminder, 30-day time frame for the initial LPAC administration. And that 30 days, I'll just point out to test coordinators, start from when they enroll in your district. So make sure your buddies with your CalPads coordinator and that they're getting that information uploaded promptly and that you have a procedure to track from day one in your district. Once they get into CalPads and they automatically get into TOMS, then you'll be able to see them here. But you could lose, well, if you're not paying attention, frankly, you could lose your entire 30-day window by not getting them into TOMS and onto this dashboard. So keep that in mind. There's a step to get them in here, and you need to make sure that your site coordinators are on top of it. Okay. The test status by domain percentage and started that have done each domain. It even breaks it down by the speaking domain information so that you can keep track if there's a disconnect between doing that data entry interface and whether or not the speaking has been given. Those two numbers should stay synced all the way through the process. And as soon as you start seeing them fall out, you can do that. I even take my completion status report and I have a little routine that separates out the one that says online test DEI from the one that's just regular speaking. And then I have them merged together and look for anything that doesn't line up. And we have a little email that we send out to people. Because that information in the completion status reports also includes the test administrator. And so I know just looking at that report, oh, okay, so that is Tyler's. I'm going to send this email to Tyler because he didn't do the DEI portion, but he did the speaking portion. So have some sort of process in place to really keep up on that. The emails that ETS have been sending out has been great, but you'll also want to make sure you have that. I do that. I have an assistant that does that weekly. So once a week, we're sending out updates, and we call it get the fives out report because 5 is the Aries code for TBD. So at the bottom of the page, the THSS, the teacher hand scoring system, by days past enrollment displays the counts of writing for the initial LPAC for grades, remember, grades 3 through 12, where that has not been completed. So you can view the number of items that are not scored or tentatively scored, things like that. You can also go into TOMS and download the THSS report so that when you get an alert from ETS, the first thing I do is go and I download the THSS report. I say, which school is it? That way I'm not hunting and pecking through all 24 of my schools. I know who it is. I'm going right there. I'm finding that person and then I'm sending them. Frankly, I forward the ETS email as it is. And I just say, hey, here's a little reminder. And I tell them who the student is. And they, oh yeah, I forgot it was Friday. I was trying to get out. And that's often the case. So keep that in mind. The majority of CalPads, again, I've just mentioned it, right? Communication. So the My TOMS at a glance, I've already mentioned this, depends on getting the data from you guys, from our districts into CalPads. Once it gets into CalPads, it flows, right? But you got to get it there. So it's important that you're regularly communicating with your CalPads coordinator up to and during test administration. And if you're reclassifying and doing accountability stuff in addition to your job as a test coordinator, after. Because we got to figure out the rates, and there's some CalPad reports that help with reclassification and all kinds of other things. So keep those in mind. So only available, the My TOMS at a glance, only available of information that TOMS has. So make sure that you also know what's coming from your SIS. All right, in TOMS, you're also where you go to download. This is the big one, right? You're going to download the student score reports. One of the questions, Tyler, that I responded to was about ISRs, and I just wanted to emphasize this verbally so everybody got it too. Keep in mind the ISRs, those individual score reports that come out of SIRS, are not the ones we're supposed to be sending home. We want to be sending home the SSRs that come out of TOMS. So make sure you can go in and download that. I typically download a file. It comes with a little HTML index, so you can go through, if you keep them all in the same directory and know the student's SSID number, you go right to it and pull it right up. That's good. There's also that connector key, so that's also good. So they can all be found in the reports tab. They're updated multiple times per week. SSRs are also available in HTML, which is kind of nice. I was kind of liking that for the first time. I'm playing with those somewhat. So we will be able to go into more detail about their different report options in a couple minutes. Many LEAs choose to distribute the SSRs electronically via a student information portal or a parent portal. So to avoid delays, you should ensure your SIS vendor has up-to-date credentials, and you can check with the credentials expire and the code for credentialing in TOMS. I know a lot of districts use Aries like my district does. And so I just wanted to mention that there is a procedure you can set up in Aries that will actually automate the process of checking for SSRs. It goes out to the ETS server when you tell it to, and it will send out messages in however many languages you want. Right now, we have 3 very simple messages along the lines of, hey, your student has a score in the portal. Go check it out. So that way, any score that comes in, be it ELA, a math score, or a LPAC score, they can go and see those. So they have those things coming through, initial summatives. We do that Tuesdays and Thursdays. One of the ways I know ETS has done a whole bunch of scoring and another wave has come is when those reports all of a sudden shoot up and I get thousands in there of hits in it instead of just my normal trickle of about 3 or 4. So that's another good way to keep up with these things. So another way you can do it is download them and then distribute them locally in person or home. A good thing to do, even with the downloading, is that connection through your student information system also allows different users, potentially front office staff, to pull up an individual student's SSR if a parent came into the office requesting it. So just another way of getting at the information, being able to provide it to our parents and their students so they're aware of their scores, and hopefully using that to set goals. All right. The Reports tab at the far right of the Navigator bar allows access to available reports. It's like my muscle memory just knows how to get there. Select the reports you'd like to download. Some reports are downloaded immediately. Other reports take time to generate. Moses is no longer with LA Unified, so he's probably got connections that can tell us when they're running reports, because those big splash screens that have been coming up, I was like, who's doing that in LA Unified? That can slow things down. There's more than a few 100,000 students going on at a time there. So LEA reports, only LEA coordinators. So again, if those of you are on this webinar are not LEA coordinators, you're going to need help from your LEA coordinator to get to the reports under the LEA coordinator button. They contain data associated with the LEA and goes across the whole thing. They're available for CASP and for LPAC. You do have to toggle between the sides of the house, as I call them, kind of like a duplex, to make sure you get the right one for the right thing if you're coordinating both LPAC and CASP like I am. Site reports can be accessed by either LEA coordinators or site coordinators. So if you're talking with the site coordinator on the phone, like I do a lot of the time, make sure you go one over from the LEA coordinators and look at the same report. Sometimes I tell them, and I'm sorry, I'm still on the LEA coordinators. You've got the site coordinators. You don't actually see that one. Let me get it for you. Reports are relevant to today's training are the LEA level SSR availability report, the student score data file, again, student score data file, and the PDF SSRs available for CASP and LPAC, depending on what role you select when you log into TOMS. The first one, the LEA level SSR availability report, I think this question was in the Padlet, provides what's the easiest way to figure out who has gotten their SSRs, right? It provides a list of students who tested, or at least have them available, tested at the selected LEA and have SSRs that are available for download. For the CASP report, there will be a general or alternative assessment SSR column that indicates the type of assessment administered. The column is followed by the ELA Math Science SSR delivery date, and the CSA SSR delivery date will list the date the SSR becomes available, if applicable. As previously mentioned, the ELA Math Science SSR becomes available only once all 3 assessments have been received. And again, from the Padlet, and I meant to ask this question, and thank you guys who all jumped into the chat or the Padlet to help support this answer. If a student gets a score for ELA and it's done, it's scored, that score will populate both in SIRS and in the student score report, even if they're still waiting for the other 2. So each test is independent as far as SIRS goes, as far as the student data file is concerned. It's only the SSR, because of the way all the elements fit together on that PDF, that is delayed. The data itself you'll get as each test is completed. So you may be able to tell a child, hey, this is what you got in ELA. We're still waiting for your math score, by looking in SIRS, for example. So keep that in mind. For the LPAC report, you'll need to select a testing program or assessment prior to downloading the report, and you'll probably want to do both, one at a time. The report will include a delivery date column as well as the list date the SSR became available. So let's dive into the next report, and drum roll, this is the one you've been waiting for, the student score data file. The student score data files for CASP and LPAC contain a wide, really wide range of information for students who tested during particular administration. In this file, LEA users can find student results, demographic information, accessibility resources, as well as the test status and completion information. Sometimes multiple columns of where they tested and things are applicable as well. So the student score data files are updated daily. So some of my folks keep asking, how often should I be checking SIRS? How often should I be checking these? Okay, no more than once a day. Don't kill yourselves. There will be data, we promise. It's just everybody's anxious to see the results, right? So as they become available. Note that this means you may see student results in the data file before their corresponding SSR is available, as we've already discussed. So while the CAS student score data file includes results for students who tested this year, and I found this out accidentally, it will also include when I was trying to run some reconciliation numbers, and all of a sudden I had 300% participation in science. And I went, what? So no, it includes high school science results for students who are enrolled in grade 12. So even if they took it in previous years, so all of the results through their high school get consolidated into one place. It is the one place that doesn't reflect this year. So keep that in mind as you go through and parse it. I just filtered out my 12th graders as a crude way of looking at it for the time being. Reports can be downloaded so that all student results can be uploaded into the LEA SIS. LEA coordinators can download the data file by enrolled LEA or tested LEA, and we're about to go into more detail and answer another Padlet question that's related to that. So we'll go ahead and go to the next slide if we could. So here we have the student score data file report, right? The CAS data file or the summative LPAC or alternate LPAC, depending on your role when you log into TOM. So you select your organization, the test administration, as part of, after you select this report, there's an interface. We should be, okay, very good. Yep. From the dropdown, you'll get to choose by enrolled or by tested LEA, and I'm going to slow down just a little bit. Why would I choose by enrolled, and why would I choose by tested? And why do they exist as two dang separate things? Just to confuse you? No, they each have a purpose, okay? For both CASP and the LPAC, the by enrolled LEA report includes students who are enrolled at the LEA at the time the report is generated and have results available, regardless of where the student was tested. So suppose you have another student information system or some other type of, not necessarily your SIS, but another type of reporting, generating information system maybe that you've done. What we're doing and trying to do is every month we go in and download the by enrolled LEA, because data from new students is getting populated by enrolled. So that makes our student information system have a much more comprehensive record of what's going on, and that we have scores for every student that our teachers can see and other people, and we can use it. So we pick up scores from all the districts around us, and occasionally some of y'all from a little bit more far-flung reaches that we don't tend to see students coming from. So a couple of things that I had written in my side notes here. You're running this monthly and getting it just to populate everything going on. Now, the by tested file contains data on students who tested with the LEA before the end of the year, and they have results available. This is, as we learned in yesterday's coffee session, for those of you who are paying attention, this is the file we advise you to use for apportionment purposes, because sometimes I usually save a file somewhere in June-ish of the by-tested students, sometimes in July. And I keep that file. And then when apportionment says, hey, we're ready for you to verify, all I got to do is pull it up, run a couple of quick pivot tables. And almost always it's, yep, that's the number I got too. Here you go, signing off an apportionment. And I can usually finish that in 15 minutes unless I have a problem. So really important, the by-tested one. The by-tested one is also going to be the one that the folks figuring out accountability are going to rely on when they're doing your calculations. So don't get into, closer to when the time is going to roll out, late September, and you have a different enrollment and things have changed and some of your seniors may have left. And then if you download the by enrolled, you're going to be kind of like, how do they get that in the accountability? It's because they use the by tested file. So keep that in mind. There's also links from this page to the data file layout for this and summative LPAC, the summative alternate LPAC. The student data file layout contains everything you need to know pretty much about any of the fields in a very, very defined. I always have to pull up the record file layout and confirm, yes, 1 is still ELA, 2 is still math. Every year, for some reason, I'm still just verifying that. So keep that in mind, that it has the values in those fields, the data sources for those fields, everything you kind of need to know there. LEAs can download the full data or partial data file using the score available date filter. That filter is auto-populated as of January 14th for CAS, February 1st for LPAC. End date is auto-populated with the date you're logging in and looking for it. Using the auto-populated dates downloads all available student data. As a tip, for the first request, LEA should leave the auto-populated date, download all available data. For subsequent requests, if an LEA wants to obtain only new assessment records, use your end date, and then from the last time you requested a report to the start date, and leave the auto-populated date set as the current date. In the rare case where students who were exempted from testing for one or more CASP assessments by parent guardian exception or PGE, or by not tested medical emergency or NTE, but the exemption was entered into TOMS after the student started testing, any resulting score will not be reported on the student's record in the student score data file. This is because PGE and NTE override a score. Please note that students with a PGE or NTE are reported in July after the end of the statewide testing window, which will probably be, it certainly is in my case, a lot further out of, based on your window, a lot further behind your window. All right, starting this year, the transitional kindergarten students were no longer included for the LPAC. They don't appear on the LPAC student score data file. If a student score data file is an SSR posted date column, you'll see that they marked the date that the student's SSR was made available. Note that the student's CASP SSR is not available until results of ELA, math, and science are all there, as we talked about before. This year, of course, some of you have commented on it. I've seen it in the Padlet, right? We've got the new LTEL and the at risk of LTEL or AR LTEL columns in the data file to identify students that are long-term English learners, or LTEL, and students that are at risk of becoming long-term English learners. Please note that the definition of LTEL and assessment reporting is different from the definition used in the California School Dashboard. For more information regarding the criteria used to determine an EL student as an LTEL for Dashboard, DataQuest, and assessment reporting, please visit the Long-Term English Learner LTEL Students webpage on the CDE website, and that should be in your guide. PDFs, SSRs are available for the CASP and for the LPAC. Both LEA coordinators and site coordinators can access PDF SSRs in TOMS. After selecting the Reports tab, select the LEA reports or site reports, depending, and then from the available reports menu, select Student Score Report PDFs. You'll be given the option to download a bulk file that contains the individual SSR PDF, or one merge file with all the SSRs in one PDF. This is where the inclusion of the 6th page on the Smarter Balance Summative Assessments and CAST SSR will be helpful. You'll have options on your screen to generate a bulk download. You can select organizations, schools, grade level, score report language, and assessments for which you'd like your SSRs. And then you need to select the SSR date range. The bulk download contains SSRs only for students who were tested in the specified LEA, not for students tested elsewhere who have since enrolled in the LEA. There is, remember, a link in your student information system if you've kept that key and everything is up to date, that you can find those individual student ones for students once they've been enrolled in Tyler. I think it's got to be a day or two in your district, so long as the record's been uploaded to CalPads. So
I'm
use
gonna
the
trust you on that. Yeah.
Okay.
I think so.
Okay. Use the download PDF by requested SSID section to download up to 10 SSRs. Good for small groups or other situations. This can also, or maybe a family group comes in. It can also be used for students who tested elsewhere but are now enrolled in your LEA site. So the requested SSID one is another method that you might go through TOMS and be able to access those as well. How are we doing on time, Tyler? Do we want to go poll or not poll here?
I think we'll skip it. Yeah, for now.
All right.
If we have time at the end, we can go back, but yeah.
All righty. Accessing individual SSRs in TOMS. LEA and site coordinators can view an individual student's PDF, SSR, and HTML in TOMS by navigating to the student section, searching for a student, and selecting report in the profile. At the bottom of the student's reporting page is the electronic and paper SSRs table. Under the HTML SSR link column, select View HTML SSR links, and a pop-up window will then list all available HTML SSR links. And those go to individual student reports. So on the same table, you can also access links to PDF SSRs under the PDF SSR link column. Please note that links are for use by LEA or site coordinators only. Links to electronic PDF SSRs and web-based HTML SSRs can only be distributed to parents and guardians through the LEA's student information system. The links in TOMS offer coordinators a preview of the parent guardian view of the SSR for reference, but they cannot be used to distribute SSRs. Just a second. We're going to talk Lexile and Quantile, but let me get a quick sip. It's the part I seem like I need to say in my commercial voice. The CDE has partnered with Metametrics to provide Lexile and Quantile measures to students who take the Smarter Balance for ELA and mathematics assessments. The Lexile and Quantile frameworks measures student reading and mathematics performance respectively. The Lexile score measures a student's current reading level and can be used to find books suitable to the student's Lexile range. In a similar fashion, the Quantile score measures a student's mathematical abilities and can be used to determine the student's readiness for instruction on certain mathematical concepts or skills. Since these scores are generated based on the student's Smarter Balance for ELA and mathematics assessment scale scores, students don't need to do anything additional to receive this score. And as of last year, they're included directly on the SSRs with Smarter Balance ELA and mathematics assessment results. Like previous years, you may also view individual students' Lexile and Quantile scores in SIRS. Lexile and Quantile measures are also available with the Interim Comprehensive Assessments, or ICAs. Note that the Lexile and Quantile measures for ICAs are only available in SIRS. LEAs can use these measures in conjunction with the ICAs to find instructional materials at the appropriate levels for their students. There are many ways that Lexile and Quantile measures can support student learning, and later in today we'll share information and additional tools and resources that help educators, parents, guardians, and students get the most out of these measures. All right, on to SIRS. The California Educator Reporting System is the tools for educators to view student data given specific user roles and depending on their permissions. You can access SIRS from the CASP and LPAC website homepage. There's a nice big button on the right. You can also navigate to SIRS from the TOMS through the Links tab, and I often go through the Links tab as well. SIRS allows users to access individual aggregate student test results for CASP, the summative LPAC, and the summative alternate LPAC. The official SSRs for distributions to families are only available within TOMS. Again, just emphasizing that from the Padlet. SIRS reports are for individual students. They are ISRs and SIRS, but the ones we want you distributing to families are those SSRs through TOMS. So the ISR, though, in SIRS is a generated score report, and it's meant to be used by educators. So maybe you're doing a staffing of a student, you're doing an IEP, you're doing some internal placement and grouping. You just not sharing that particular format of the report with families. Due to the fact that educators can access results in SIRS prior to the release of SSRs, SIRS data can also be used for planning purposes ahead of time. Maybe you're balancing classes or something else. After overall quality control procedures are complete, results begin to populate in SIRS daily as they are reported. Test results are available, but access will depend on the permission associated with the user's role. And we're going to talk a little bit more about the sandbox in a minute, but that's a great tool for figuring out what it is the user is seeing if you have a different role. Excuse me. As students, ELA math and science results are all reported in SIRS independently of each other. You don't have to wait for everything. You will see them one by one as they show up. Might mean you find results for some students in SIRS for whom you do not yet have an SSR. Excuse me. Information is included in the interface to help distinguish between students who receive a summative LPAC domain exemption versus students who did not test in a domain and have no domain exemption. Because of appeals or exemptions on any assessments not called out in SIRS, aggregate results may differ slightly from what was reported in the test results for California's assessment website. That's the public results reporting website. The SIRS user guide describes features of SIRS, provide detailed instruction for using each feature, lots and lots of screenshots, including common scenarios. The SIRS user guide includes reports for CAST summative assessments, summative LPAC, summative alternate LPAC, and the interim assessment. Directions are provided to view assessment data at individual and group levels and how to create custom reports. It outlines the various TOMS user roles and their permissions in SIRS, including creating and managing student groups so teachers have access to their students' results. In addition to the SIRS user guide, a separate resource, the Understanding SIRS video, also available. I mentioned the sandbox before. The SIRS resources tab for CASP and LPACs, there are two buttons to log on to SIRS to access. One is SIRS, which will access your data. The other is the SIRS sandbox. You can select the sandbox if you're going to be presenting publicly, or if the other use I use for it is if I'm trying to explore and walk somebody through what it is they see, I will sometimes log into the sandbox so I make sure I understand the steps from their perspective and their user role. So there's no logon needed for SIRS sandbox. It is available publicly. You'll be asked to choose your role from a dropdown. If you're asked to choose your role from a long dropdown of roles you don't normally see, good clue that you're in the sandbox and not in SIRS. So if you were thinking you were going to SIRS and you ended up looking at a long list of different roles, you're probably in the sandbox. So no secure information, again, is stored there. It is intended as a training tool to help LEA staff learn about the features and functions of SIRS. And as my friend from Fresno County Superintendent's of Schools Office, Joe Valero, says, and does several of these types of presentations as well, remember that the data that is in SIRS sandbox doesn't necessarily match up on the individual student level. So if you get weird stuff and you're scratching your head going, but I thought that, don't worry about that. It's about the mechanics of the system. Don't get too hung up on an individual piece of data that you might see in there, okay? Again, Tyler, I think we'll probably just go ahead and move on. Or did you want to launch this particular poll?
Yeah, let's go ahead and move on.
All right. Once logged into SIRS, those with LEA or site coordinator roles assigned to them can access, and this is that whole box at the top, right? The administrator tools boxes at the top and their assessment results. So the administrator tools include creating custom aggregate reports, running LEA and school exports, which allows for the export of data for analysis in another application, creating and managing student groups. We're going to review that momentarily. Accessing instructional resources, which can be uploaded to the system. To access assessment results, you can search by student or by assessment results by school and specific grade level or multiple grade levels. Users who have groups assigned to them, rostered groups, will access those groups on the SIRS homepage. If a teacher has a group of students assigned to that teacher by administrator, the group will appear on the student groups button. Really important to do that. Administrators can be added to that record just by adding the administrator. They don't need to be connected with the same group name. So LEA, site, and CAS coordinators can create and manage groups, that is rosters, using the student groups button. From the manage student group screen, a student group CSV file will need to be uploaded into the SIRS interface. A link to the SIRS user guide, which includes directions on uploading the student group, is included in your resource guide. Once student groups are created, teachers will have access to their students' test results. It's also possible to set up automatic rostering by having your SIS vendor integrate with SIRS. To set up the integration, you're going to contact your vendor and they will walk you through the process. More information about this is available in the SIS/SIRS vendor integration webpage. In addition to a link in the SIRS user guide, the resource guide links to a video on creating student groups and information about rostering. And I'll just add here, it's one of the questions that came up in the Padlet was about how do I make sure, so I've got two things going on, right? That people can see last year's results with last year's kids. And so the way you do that is making sure that your groups, and I kind of compare it to grabbing different clipboards. I'm right now in 24-25, so this is your group of kids. They're going to move on to the next grade level, but results are still coming in. I'm going off on vacation. I'll come look at it in the fall. So for reflection, I make sure that I include somewhere in my naming convention, usually in my case, it's at the end, underscore 24-25. So that teacher knows, oh, these are the kids I had in 24-25. Then when we create new groups, because they're going to be doing the IABs and the FIABs, I create an underscore 25-26. So a teacher can toggle for planning purposes. They can go into the 25-26 group and actually see their old scores and say, oh, these are my kids that were struggling last year. So maybe I'm a fourth grade teacher. Now I can see what they did in third grade as they're coming in. So they can use that for planning. And they can use it throughout the year for their active students. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up, Eric, because I was gonna jump in and I saw a couple questions about students who leave the LEA and that they're still appearing in SIRS. And that is normal, right? If they tested with your LEA, you'll be able to see those scores like from last year, even if that student is no longer there, but you won't get any future scores from that student, obviously, once they've left your LEA. So that's something that, I know folks ask about. And there were a couple features added to kind of the management of student groups in SIRS pretty recently that kind of help with the management that you're talking about, Eric. So one thing is now that you can add people to an existing group just through the interface in SIRS instead of having to upload a new file. And you can also download those groups. And especially when the admin year switches over at the end of July, early August, student groups get cleared out of SIRS. If you want to give your teachers access to the previous year, you'll want to download those files. If you didn't save them, you can download those student groups files before the downtime and then re-upload them after to give your teachers access to last year's info. So a couple of common questions we get about that I wanted to mention.
Thanks, Tyler. I appreciate that a lot. The other thing that you didn't mention was the multiple delete function, which is wonderful. Yeah. Thank you for whoever the programmer who came up with that. I was able to go through it in about 48 clicks because it's 2 clicks per school. Select my 23-24 group. I just left that ride as a search criteria. I selected all the 23-24, one school, click done. next school, click the button at the top, everything gets checked down the row, click done, you're deleted. So I just recently cleared out my 23-24 group. I don't know that I would necessarily recommend letting them linger that long, but at least at the beginning of the year, because I'm thinking I don't want teachers to have more than 2 years of rosters. It just gets overwhelming. So, all right. So that's about SIRS. We're also going to talk about what's coming up here in the public reporting website. And this is always, for some reason, I've never been able to get TRCA in my brain. That's the test results for California's assessment website, because I probably keep referring it to the public website. So the website provides information about all of the California assessments, makes aggregate data from these assessments available to the public. From the homepage, users can access aggregate results for the following assessment options: Smarter Balance, summative assessments for ELA and mathematics, the California Science Test, the CAST, the alternate assessments for ELA and mathematics, initial LPAC, summative LPAC, initial alternate LPAC, and summative alternate LPAC, as well as the CAA for science and the California Spanish Assessment, the CSA. All of those are in there. It has been processed, and I've been told this before, but it to me is kind of the closest to who was tested in your district. It's sort of our first look at data. It has not gone through all the rigorous inclusion and exclusion rules. It's not the same thing as the dashboard. So it gives a good global kind of who sat in your district, tested in your district, got a score in your district kind of look at your data. So keep that in mind. LEAs will be notified. This is where the embargo does kick in. You guys don't give us a black screen, but you just tell us not to put anything out there publicly on other districts, counties, or at the state level. We do get that a little bit ahead of time, so that we can see what that's going to look like. It includes all the student groups and things like that. Let's take a look a little bit deeper at what the data is going to be reported in that. When you first come up, it's funny, at my distance and focus level, it looks like two washing machines and a dryer next to each other. From the homepage, you could select an assessment for which you'd like to view aggregate results. It's going to have not washing machines, but those two circle graphs on there for you. So you'll be able to see this when you go to ELA and math results. There's a percentage of students with each achievement level for each subject area, and the visualizations can be filtered by year, grade level, student group, student type. You can also search for a specific school and do the same kind of filters for that, look at their aggregate results. To better understand how these results are calculated, select the View Detailed Test Results button. By selecting the View Detailed Test Results button, you'll be able to view data by number, percent, or toggle between the two. You'll also access research files which contain the same information presented in the detailed section of this site. And for those of you who've never downloaded a research file before, it contains all sort of the toggle options all at once. So you will see it presented as both a number and a percent in separate columns already there. It's a really cool thing to be able to download the research file, and it's more than is on the screen at any one time, but it includes things from some of the different toggles. So they're provided to allow you for more complex analysis and customized reporting of the data. And composite and individual claims. So for the Smarter Balance summative assessments for ELA and mathematics, there's aggregations of composite claims. They'll be reported for groups of 11 or more on this website. And as we previously covered, the composite claims are reading and listening, writing and research for ELA, and concepts and procedures, and mathematical practices, of course, for mathematics. Last year, aggregations of individual claims for groups of 30 or more students were reported and will continue to be reported this year. Users can select whether 24 or 25 CASP results display by number of students, percentage of students, or both. And this functionality has already been in place for the LPAC, and that continues to be available for the LPAC as well. Keep in mind the LPAC results are also here. It's a similar report, only got one circle graph, of course. Overall performance by percent at each performance level and grade level is what comes up first. Oral and written language composites by percent at each performance level and grade level for individual and summative LPAC, and results by domain for percent performance level. By selecting detailed results, you'll be able to see data by number, percent, or both. All right, a few other things that are available out there. They can be reviewed in the test results at a glance page, and that's the school district state comparison, which allows you to compare selected schools results with the LEA and with the state. Change over time allows you to track a group of students who have progressed over consecutive test years. For example, how students in grade 6 have performed on ELA in the last few years. It's only applicable to assessments taken over multiple test years, so it's not applicable to the initial LPAC. Grade reports are also available, and they reports the average overall score by grade level, as well as the overall oral language and written language score by grade level for the general LPAC assessments. Performance trend reports available for Smarter Balance, ELA, and Math, and for the CAST. The report allows you to view the performance of 2 different student groups within a single grade over up to 5 administrations by gender or socioeconomic status. And note that these additional comparisons are not currently available for the California Science Assessment. All right. Compare results for up to 3 entities by the state. We have that there. And Tyler, just trying to catch up. I did not print that particular page. There we go. Within the test results for the website, there is a search compare results. The tool allows you to compare the results for up to 3 entities. Entities could be the state, county, district, school level. The tool also provides the option to compare results from these entities for a specific year, grade level, or student group, and you can select whether to include charter schools or non-charter schools with this tool. All right. Is that another break point? That was a lot. My throat is feeling it.
Yeah, thanks, Eric. Yeah, another mammoth section there that we got through. Thank you, though. Yeah, that's all really excellent information. We're getting to the final stretch here, so I'm gonna get us through these last couple sections that are pretty short, but we got quite a few questions about scoring kind of right off the bat on our Padlet, and all of that is still there. So make sure to check out the Padlet if you haven't yet, and browse through some of the questions and answers there. We might not be able to read too many of those out loud, but there's a lot of the questions that were asked are going to be answered right here anyway. So let's jump in. So this was one of the big questions that we got, actually, was about the different types of scoring methods for the CAST and the LPAC, and the type of scoring really varies depending on the assessment, the domain, or item type. So there are deterministic items, which are predetermined correct answers, for example, multiple choice. And so those items are machine scored through the test delivery system, or by scanning paper booklets, obviously. But the questions often come in around constructed response items, or CR items, which require a student to write or speak an answer that they construct, such as the WER short answer questions or speaking item. And so there's 3 methods to scoring those. There's human scoring, of course, that requires a person to review the response, score it using a rubric. But this person is not a local test administrator or examiner. ETS scores these responses. For instance, the K through 2 LPAC writing domain, those answer books are returned to ETS to score. For a subset of constructed responses, it is possible to automate some of that scoring with artificial intelligence or AI. So that's what we've gotten a lot of questions about, or is people, are you using AI to score? To some degree, the AI scoring can help reduce the turnaround time for delivering scores to teachers and parents or guardians, but all of the AI scoring processes include human involvement at some level to monitor the quality and validity of that scoring process. And then there is some local scoring as far as certain CR items that are rated by the test administrator or examiner. For instance, parts of the CAAs are locally scored since they're administered one by one, and the initial LPAC writing domain is scored locally as well. So little overview on that. I think a lot of us are familiar with the idea of computer adaptive tests, or CAT, but we just wanted to, go over this briefly, that this refers to a test or a portion of a test that's administered on the computer, but adjusts the item pool presented to the student based on their performance and skill level. So the student takes the test, answers questions correctly or incorrectly, and the test kind of adjusts the level of difficulty to adapt to the student's skill level and more accurately identify that. So it's just important, for us to clarify that term computer adaptive test versus just a computer-based test, which is just any test that is administered on a computer or another device. And not all assessments are adaptive, of course. Not all parts of an assessment are adaptive. The Smarter Balanced ELA domain is split into a CAT portion and a performance task portion, of course. And there's a little bit more information on this topic in the testing technology webpage on the Smarter Balanced website, and there's a link to that in your resource guide. And then, of course, in contrast to the CATs, some assessments are linear, where they don't adapt. The items are the same to all students. So the CAST, the CAA for Science, CSA, and all LPAC assignments are all linear assignments. Okay, Haas and LAS, these are some of my favorite acronyms, so gotta cover these. Just so folks, if you hear these terms, Haas refers to a number that's the highest obtainable scale score, and a LAS refers to lowest obtainable scale score. So they're just the upper and lower limits, basically, of possible scores that have been determined by the psychometrics team when a test is implemented. A loss can be earned by answering all or nearly all questions incorrectly, but it can also be assigned in special cases, such as when a student answers too few questions, or if they're using an approved unlisted resource that changes the construct of the assessment, they might get a loss as well. If that is what happens, they'll get a condition code, which triggers special wording on the SSR. But if you get a loss just based on answering questions incorrectly, there is no condition code associated with that. All right, another common question we get is about score weight for the Smarter Balanced CAT versus PT. And the short answer is there's not a fixed weight. There's not a fixed a weighting of how much a PT applies to the overall score, because all items, including the PTs, vary in difficulty and contribute to the overall score based on that difficulty. So it gets a little complicated to go more in depth than that, but if you want to learn a little bit more, there is a PDF in the resource guide called Basic Concepts of Item Response Theory, a non-mathematical explanation. So glad for folks like me to have a non-mathematical explanation for that. Just a little bit about summative LPAC domain exemptions. So for the summative LPAC, a domain exemption can be used if an English learner student has a disability that precludes them from accessing the assessment in a certain LPAC domain. And the use of this is granted in pretty rare cases and must be identified in the student's IEP or Section 504 plan. And for a student to be assigned an overall score, that student needs to be assessed in at least one domain for both the oral language and written language composites of the LPAC. So if a student has a domain exemption for one of the two domains, that student's composite score will be calculated using only the domain that they took, the non-exempted domain. If a student doesn't test in a domain but doesn't have an exemption, then their composite score will still be calculated using both. And there are some resources on that, the summative LPAC scoring and participation PDF in your resource guide. There's also one for the summative alternate LPAC, because a similar method is used there, that they need to, students need to participate with at least one expressive item, which is kind of the speaking and writing domain, or the receptive item, which is listening and reading. But all of those, there's no separate domains in the alternate LPAC, so it's just based on what items they respond to, including a mark as no response is considered a valid response as well. So that can factor in. And again, some more info on that alternate LPAC scoring and participation PDF in your resource guide. And then we've talked about a lot of different resources today. These are all, there for you to read more about. So I'll let you explore them in your resource guide. But definitely a lot of resources that you can really dive into around this. But because we're running short on time, I'm just gonna jump us right to communicating results. And I'll try to go through this quickly, Eric, but feel free to jump in if you have anything that you want to add here. So a lot of questions were coming in to the Padlet I saw also about communicating results, because this is obviously really important. And we have touched on aspects of that so far, but just know that, obviously results are needed by a lot of different educational partners, including the LEA and school staff and parents and guardians, and even school boards and other community members. So the LEA coordinators are the ones who need to receive that score information through TOMS and work with your site coordinators to confirm that staff, like teachers, have the appropriate user roles assigned to them in SIRS, and groups assigned, of course, so that they can see the results. And then, of course, parents and guardians are also provided with their children's results each year. So that is a huge responsibility at this time of year. And then, of course, during the embargoed preview period that Eric mentioned earlier, and after kind of vetting your own results, you can share your LEA's preview results with the public for purposes of local training, or such as with the local governing board. And if you do that during that embargo period where folks get a preview, it should be emphasized that the results aren't technically finalized until that official statewide release. And you shouldn't be sharing other LEA's results until after that public release as well. All right, parent and guardian notification. So we've mentioned this, but just to go through it again, because it's important. California regulations do designate the time frame in which LEAs must provide the parent and guardian notification of score availability and make results available to parents and guardians. So the regulations are linked in your resource guide, but the basics are within 20 business days after receiving CASP SSRs, LEAs need to provide clear instructions on how parents and guardians will access those SSRs. So if results are received after the end of the school year, you may deliver them at the beginning of the following year within 20 working days of its start. The windows for notifying and making SSRs available for the LPAC is 30 calendar days if received during the instructional year. And then again, if they're received after the end of the year, they must be delivered within 15 working days of the start of the next school year. So this SSR delivery timeline requirement starts from the date that the LEAs receive all SSRs and TOMS, not from the date results are first received in the student score data file or in SIRS. And then lastly, if LEAs provide SSRs to parents and guardians electronically, parents and guardians must be notified, of course. If you're notifying via email, you should have a process in place on how to address emails that bounce back or are undeliverable. Optional parent and guardian letter templates and SSR samples can be found on our website on the web pages linked in your resource guide. And also a reminder that LEAs can combine sending summative LPAC SSRs with the annual parent notifications at the beginning of the instructional year. These templates are found on the CDE's parent notification webpage and are state and federally mandated. And lastly, we want to make sure you're aware of the Starting Smarter website, which explains how to understand student results using kind of more family-friendly language. It also has sample SSRs, sample test questions, and other resources for students and families. SSRs, forecast, and LPAC assessments have links and QR codes that point to that Starting Smarter website. So that is a good option for folks. And I know, Eric, that you mentioned the setup you all have using Aries. I saw a couple of folks post on the Padlet there about more info on that. So you probably already have, but if you haven't, we can post some info maybe on there that
yeah,
folks can use.
the keyword to search for in Aries is the word configuration. And that will reveal several things that you can configure to sort of semi-automate processes in Aries.
Awesome. Thank you. All right. Well, we kind of ran through the last section or two pretty quickly here, but there's so much information here. I think that we don't want to overload anybody too much. So I just want to thank you all for being here and spending a couple hours with us, learning a little bit about scoring and reporting, hopefully. And we mentioned all the places to go to learn even more. That probably doesn't sound super fun right now to have more information thrown at you, but I can't recommend highly enough all of the trainings that we have elsewhere. The data leadership one for CASP that starts soon. We mentioned the LPAC data trainings on Moodle. And yeah, a lot of great info out there. And yeah, any other topics, Eric or Moses, that you want to mention, either from the Padlet or from elsewhere
Eric,
before we go?
Yeah, just one comment, because it came up in the Padlet. Aside from the ones the trainings that Eric just mentioned, there was a wonderful question about the rubrics and how to use them. There's an upcoming series, a wonderful upcoming series of trainings called the Interim Informative Assessment Training Series, that exactly to what that person was asking about, how to use those rubrics in all ELA, math, science, and the LPAC ones. There's a wonderful training series around that. So who that person was, and to all, that comment, instructionally speaking, nothing more valuable than that series of trainings that are coming up later on. Yeah, thank you. It's in the chat.
Yeah, put that registration link in the chat for you. Yeah, there's sessions on just learning more about tools for teachers and formative assessments and interim assessments in general. But then there's also this year a new panel session about how folks are using the interims, and it very much connects with the data that you're getting now, right? And turning that into something positive for your students. And then, yeah, like you said, Moses, there's hand scoring workshops that give you that work with the rubrics that's really valuable.
I just want to thank everybody for hanging with us. I know we're almost 10 minutes over at this point. We really appreciate it. I was curious how many we got logged in and how many are still with us, but thank you all for hanging with us. We know how busy you are this time of year. We apologize for having so much content to try to provide to you. Reach out for help. Reach out to your success agents. They're wonderful. They do a great job in doing this. They're tired too. It's been a long testing season for them as well. So as you go through, particularly if you're a new coordinator, make sure you take use of those available resources and really look at it. The system has come such a long way in the time frame that since Moses and I started doing this in LEAs, and the amount of data and the amount of information can be overwhelming at this point, but it's light years from where we were a decade or so ago. So hopefully you guys have a chance to attend those if you're new, and if you've been doing it for a little while, you already know are going and trying to get those reports together and trying to get people, try to help them know that there's probably a few more to come in, and things could change a little bit. So make sure that they know that.
Definitely. Yeah. Thank you, Eric and Moses. Wonderful presenters as always. And just FYI, when we close this session, you will probably get a pop-up link to our survey, and we'll send that out via email as well. Just to evaluate this session, we'd love to hear your feedback. Always looking to improve our trainings. So please take a few minutes to do that if you can. Thanks, everyone. Hope you have a great summer, and we'll see you around, I'm sure.
Thank you. Thank you, Tyler. Thank you, everybody.
Yeah, thanks, everyone.